Growing up, my father was a coke dealer, and the internet plays a big part in that. Coke doesn't change, but the ways in which it makes its way around keep developing and becoming even more efficient. He might be working, driving around in his car, but the internet makes it possible to communicate with buyers from all over. Besides this delicious Coca-Cola beverage, there is another type of Coke. Chris Rock recently said that social media and the internet are a lot worse than a cocaine addiction, because at least with cocaine, you're aware that what you're doing is very wrong. With the internet and social media, you feel a need for it, but you don't usually question it having any severe effects on you. I came to St. Thomas Academy as a stereotypical, cool, interesting guy. But within a few hours, I realized I was in fact that one quiet, tall guy. I strongly dislike the term quiet being associated with me because I had never been known like that before. I always knew myself as a loud, energetic, hyper kid. None of the people that I looked up to were quiet people. I was defined by various things that people found out about me through the internet, and my daily conversations were limited to me just explaining these things to people. This seems to have started with tweets. Although I struggled with confidence at school, I was able to post lasting testaments to my rare burst of confidence on the internet. I talked about things that I was too shy to speak on in real life. People at school would ask me, "Nick, why do you so aggressively roast A$AP Rocky on Twitter?" "Nick, why do you name drop Claro in all of your tweets?" "Nick, why do you tweet extremely lengthy philosophical analysis of Mamma Mia 2? I won Yeezys from Kanye West on Twitter when I had correctly guessed the name of his upcoming album. I never talked about music with people in real life, but for my guessing of the album title, people began to realize how truly obsessed and observant I was when it came to hip-hop and Twitter culture, and this led to many real-life conversations. Once the Yeezy hype had died down, I was defined by my place as a founder of the highly esteemed SoundCloud rap group, Bike Gang Ride or Die. This was a rap group I had created with my middle school friends. It was ironic and satirical, and we had recorded most of the music before ever planning on making it public or showing it to people. We would all drink excessive amounts of Mountain Dew Code Red and take turns freestyling and attempting to make each other laugh by saying the most ignorant things possible mid-sugar rush. Many of my classmates considered me to be very serious and were convinced that these songs were some sort of genuine attempt at skilled rapping. Even throughout this, I didn't really seek out relationships in real life the first few years at this school. I knew that within all the people of the internet, there would be a group who would find me funny and interesting, and I thought this would be a lot easier than building up lasting real-life relationships. Unfortunately, isolation has a snowball effect to it, and the longer I went without fully breaking out of my shell, it seemed to only become harder to get out of. I became stagnant for some time when no new revelations emerged for me to be defined by, and I began to get comfortable with my monotonous social routine, in which I didn't connect with anybody and really just forced myself through each school day, excited to get home and to have time to myself. I built up a sort of narcissistic mentality, but I later realized that this all might have been a front for social anxiety and the fear of rejection that I was facing. Instead of productively building myself in real life, I attempted to fix my confidence by getting attention on the internet. I soon learned that the internet is a terrible place to develop your self-esteem. The internet is brutal, and it gives you imaginary ideas and leads you to assume. When an attractive person doesn't give you the immediate follow back, you're kind of just like, well, I guess I'm not an adequate... doesn't give you the immediate follow back. You're kind of just like, ha, well, I guess I'm not an adequate human being and I'm not worthy of being loved. I think you should develop yourself in the real world and create a strong foundation before you join the internet and are criticized and indirectly judged for the person that you are. The internet is kind of traumatic also. Back in the olden times, maybe you'd experience your village getting burnt down and pillaged like one time, but by then you've already been decapitated anyways, so you don't have time to process how messed up it was. The internet is just experiencing devastation and living to tell the tale. I'm not sure if the brain was really designed to process as many negatives at one time, so it makes sense why the perception of the world and overall enthusiasm for life seems more negative than ever. When I was at my lowest socially, I spoke to people on an online Kanye West forum about social anxiety. And you already know that all Kanye West fans are true conscious intellectuals. So I was recommended a few psychology books. Even just the basic stuff felt different when I read it on paper. I read about early scientific tests in which animals developed, reached goals quicker, and were more motivated when they were rewarded for acting well instead of being punished for wrongdoing. This wasn't even anything substantial or some huge breakthrough. It just made perfect sense to me. For too much of high school, I had focused on all of the bad things. I beat myself up anytime I felt I wasn't living up to my own expectations for myself. When I said something awkward, or my voice cracked, or my voice didn't sound like I wanted it to, or when I would confidently say something and people would laugh at me, and I would become convinced that what I had said was really stupid. And because of this, I remained stagnant for a really long time. Looking forward to the speech in past years, I always expected it to be some huge lie. I didn't really expect things to improve for me, and I always thought this speech would be a forced conclusion, where I'd pretend to have learned things, made friends, and reached a new enlightenment and happiness. Fortunately, I don't think that I have to lie about these things. Everything seems to have worked out to an extent. There was a time where I could only find confidence when I was by myself behind a screen, but I eventually created friendships and sparked interest from people online, which led to many real-life friendships here. Just like isolation, confidence seems to have a snowball effect to it also. Being lonely and not having friends isn't some indicator that you actually suck as a person, but more often it just seems to be a situational thing and a lack of opportunity. It's a continuing process, and I think it's unrealistic to have things figured out once you leave high school. I don't think that high school needs to be some grand finale and huge breakthrough for everybody. I'm just happy with where I've made it so far. It took me a while to realize that although you can catch glimpses of it all over, you can't indulge in the delicious taste of Coke through the internet. Some of the greatest things in life are only out there in the real world. Thank you.